Ooh, the summer of 1991 sure brought wrestling a great many things, both good and not so good. There was the UWF's Beach Brawl pay-per-view, which I covered most recently here on the Classic Review series, and that show existed. That was probably the nicest thing I could say about Beach Brawl. But hey, you know what? The UWF, that was really a wild time in the early 90s, and they were there to compete with the big boys, WCW and the WWF. And the UWF, they really gave it their all. They gave it the old college try with Beach Brawl, and I bet you anything it had the people up at Titan Towers shaking in their boots, hoping they could follow what was presented in Palmetto. We're going to find out how well they did that as we look at WWF Summerslam 1991 from Monday, August 26th at Madison Square Garden in New York City. This show was nominated by Mike Fangman, Adam Vanderplum, and Master Builder over at patreon.com/wrestlingwithregret. SummerSlam 91 is considered by many to be the greatest of the golden era SummerSlams, and what's very notable about this year's show is kind of a double main event, very unconventionally so, because on the one hand, you've got a wedding for a couple that have actually been married for 7 years up to this point. And then the other main event is a match blowing off a program that was already dated and a little tasteless going into WrestleMania, which they have managed to stretch out all the way into August. But a lot of other crazy shit's happening right now in the world of wrestling. The Dr. Zahorian steroid trial has just concluded. He's been found guilty. That is going to spell some dark times for the WWF in the very near future. Hulk Hogan, the current WWF champion, was recently on the Arsenio Hall show, caught lying through his teeth about steroid usage. And it was this, which was really one of his first big controversies throughout his career. It's crazy to think that simply lying about steroid use was enough back then to potentially end your reign as one of the most popular figures of all time. Ooh, what an innocent era. Also, Ric Flair is now on his way to the WWF. He recently quit WCW while still the world champion. He owns the physical belt. He cannot appear or sign with the WWF until September, but for the time being, he has given the company the big gold belt, and we have seen Bobby Heenan on TV presenting it and saying the real world's champion, Ric Flair, is coming to the World Wrestling Federation. Holy crap, what a tremendous coup this was for the WWF. I mean, Flair leaving in the wake of his arguments with Jim Herd over the future of his character. I mean, that was a huge blow to WCW in its early days. And, it can only be the WWF's gain to bring Ric Flair with the belt. It's summertime, and the living is anything but easy because it's time for SummerSlam. And they got the juxtaposed graphics. Ooh, match made in heaven, Macho and Liz up in the clouds. But oh no, the clouds are burning. It's a match made in hell. Oh no. The show is sold out in the WWF's home turf. 20,000 folks packed MSG. This show earned 405,000 pay-per-view buys. It's down big from the year before at about 507K, but this show still drew a better number than WrestleMania 7 did, which is pretty darn rare. Gorilla Monsoon, Roddy Piper, and Bobby Heenan are on the call for this one, and Heenan says the Macho Man's gonna tie a knot tonight around his neck with a noose. And Piper talks about the match made in hell. Hogan hates Warrior, Warrior hates everybody. How's this match gonna go? I thought that was a great little analysis. Piper, God, I love him in small doses on commentary, but boy, this show, he just basically goes hard on every single joke he's got, and it really gets under my skin by the end of this show. Like, for instance, he calls Bobby Heenan boobs all night, which is, funny for one segment. Funny for one match, but man, when he does that every time, like at least 5 or 6 times a match, it gets old. Starting off with a match to get some guys on the card as the British Bulldog, the Texas Tornado, Kerry Von Erich, and Ricky the Dragon Steamboat take on Power and Glory and the Warlord. And he breathes a fire in Madison Square Garden and everything, and the lights come up like, aw, the baddies are already in the ring. They got no entrance. Early on, I like Paul Roma's big standing drop kick, but he takes a nice second rope arm drag from the Arm Dragon. We see Warlord Warlord and Bulldog face off, and like the crowd's like, fuck yes, and I'm like, fuck yes, like callback to WrestleMania 7, like the sleeper hit of the show was this matchup. Bulldog even suplexing the big man. Dragon goes for a monkey flip, but the Warlord just blocks it. I loved that cutoff. A little bit of misdirection by Hercules distracts the ref, allows Warlord to lay into Steamboat. Now the heat begins. Warlord continues to attack the Dragon. A second rope flying nothing leads to Ricky putting up the boots, tags into Kerry, who goes on a big run. Nice blind tag by Tornado to Bulldog. The Bulldog leaps off the second rope. He's caught by Warlord, but then Kerry with the discus punch. Somehow that's not the finish, but it was a great falsie. Herc tags in, immediately takes a running power slam. We get another kick out, and then you get a hurry to get Ricky in the match for the finish. Big top rope crossbody on Herc to win for the team. I give it 3 stars out of 5. For a match that had not much build and 0 expectations, I thought this is a fun opener. Only to get these guys on the card, but I think they filled the role well, got the crowd involved. Some really good athleticism in this matchup. Sean Mooney is backstage with the Golden Greek, John Tolos, fresh out of the shark cage at Beach Brawl and a whistle now in hand. He is coach, and he's with the Intercontinental Champion, Mr. Perfect. And the whole build for this matchup, all the promos between Kurt and Bret so far have been about excellence of execution versus perfection. Which is better? Is it excellence? Is it perfection? Does perfection even really exist? And Mr. Perfect says the Intercontinental belt says wrestling champion on it, and for you to be the champ, you have to be perfect. And you're excellent, but you're not perfect. Coming up next for the Intercontinental Championship, Mr. Perfect defense against Bret the Hitman Hart. After WrestleMania, they split up the Hart Foundation to give Bret Hart a singles push once again, and they mean it this time, and this matchup is pretty much all but confirmed as his big coronation. I'm not sure why Mr. Perfect needed Coach to be with him for this last stretch. I know he was injured and everything, but it's not like Coach did a whole lot to make up for whatever deficiencies Hennig might have had going into it. It feels like a downgrade from Bobby Heenan. On no disrespect to John Tolos, but he ain't Bobby Heenan. And furthermore, if Mr. Perfect is perfect, what does he need a coach for? And if Mr. Perfect's on his way out, right after this match, what's the fucking point? Stu and Helen Hart are seen watching from the audience. Hey, UWF may have the black hearts. The WWF's got the old hearts. The match starts off aggressive. I love that bump Perfect takes off the early hip toss. Bret works the headlock for an awful long time. Both guys fighting over each other's hair. Bret comes back to the headlock, even knocks him out of the ring. Perfect and Coach take a powder, but Bret catches back up to him and he tears the singlet. That iconic moment is so awesome. The crowd loves it as Bret brings Perfect back into the ring. Perfect with the cheap shot, laying out Hart. And then Piper with the weirdest line of the night where he says, "Perfect's yelling rape. It ain't gonna help." Jesus. Bret's blasted off the apron, flings right into the barricade and a ringside photog. Bret gets a nice hope spot, but Perfect kicks out of a roll-up, decks him again. The champ starts to hit his signature moves. They're both up on the top rope. Bret tumbles. Perfect tumbles somewhat more gracefully for a cover. There's "Let's Go Bret" chants. Great counter by Perfect into the sleeper off the ropes. I love that. This stuff is so good. Bret is showing the fatigue. Perfect is showing the unwavering confidence. As the heat goes on, Bret even kicks out of the Perfect Plex, which no one has done before, and Heenan's freaking out, and Hennig's freaking out, and Coach is hopping around. Bret fires back up. He flings Hennig from one side of the ring to the next. Perfect is crotched on the post. Bret starts hitting his trademark moves. Russian leg sweep, or as Gorilla Monsoon shouts, neckbreaker! Hart's on fire here. Many leg kicks. He goes for the sharpshooter. Coach on the ropes. Bret says nuts to that, but then takes a rope to the nuts. Perfect hits a leg drop, but Bret blocks it, works his way into the sharpshooter. Perfect submits, and Bret wins. Bret is the new champion and then defrocks Perfect and rips the rest of the singlet off. Oh, wait. Let me help you. Let me help get that off for you. Okay, now he's been defrocked. And after the match, you see Lord Alfred Hayes suddenly standing by with the Elder Hearts. That gave me a jump scare. I forgot he was still in the company. So he's asking, "Stu, what do you think about this?" As Bret's coming there, they're doing the hug. Lord Alfred goes, Stu, what do you think about? You must be so full of emotion right now. And Stu just goes, "It's wonderful. There you go. He's lost for words." You keep asking and badgering him for a question. He's finally going to start talking. Well, there you go. I'm going to give this match 4.5 stars out of 5. This was a tremendous opener, and it's one of the best matches of Bret's career. It's really star-making for him. And I think, pardon the pun, but Curt Hennig is the perfect foil for him. These two had amazing chemistry, told a fantastic story. And what makes this even more stunning is the fact that Curt was able to do this and sell as well as he did and bump as well as he did and make Bret look like $1 million while working with this really severe back injury that was going to keep him on the shelf after this for well over a year. Couldn't wrestle after this matchup, but worked his ass off to make Bret look like the second coming. And, there's no stopping Bret's career after this. Like, he's off to the races, and he's going to be a big guy in WWF for a while after this. Hot ticket on pay-per-view this October. Hey, look at Hulk Hogan, everyone. Let's fly into his mouth. Whoa! Mean Gene's in the promo zone with the Bushwhackers and Andre the Giant. They recap the segment where Andre rejected Jimmy Hart's proposal to join him, but then he got jumped by Earthquake, had one of the longest beatdowns in history, followed by one of the longest post-beatdown limps up the ramp I've ever seen in wrestling, where Andre just spends like 5 minutes all by himself going up the ramp moaning, "Oh, oh." And Cousin Luke and Cousin Butch say they're ready, and they say, "We're gonna lick those natural disasters, and we're gonna eat them, and we're gonna feed them to you, Andre." Now, how is he gonna eat them when they've already ate them? So we go to that match now. The Bushwhackers with Andre the Giant in their corner take on Earthquake and Typhoon, the natural disasters, accompanied by Jimmy Hart. Well, Andre, he's not wrestling anymore in the WWF, but he is making appearances here, and so for the last several months they've been doing this storyline where all these different managers are trying to court Andre and get him to work for them, but he all rejects them in hilarious ways each week. And so finally, live in the ring, like I said, he turns down Jimmy Hart. The beatdown happens. Then right after this, Tugboat turns to the dark side and betrays the Bushwhackers in the middle of a matchup to become Typhoon, joining up with Earthquake to form the Natural Disasters. Big pop for the baby faces here. Andre coming to the ring with crutches, selling the beatdown by Earthquake and the knee surgery he had. Kind of sad to see him in that state. It is the last time we will see Andre make an on-air appearance in the WWF. He will wrestle a little bit after this, but yeah, it's kind of weird to see him kind of in this infirm position, but it is cool to see him in the hallowed halls of Madison Square Garden one more time. Piper says the Bushwhackers are licking and whacking their way through everything. Ew. Quake and Foon threaten Andre at the start, but that gives the Whackers a chance to poke him in the eyes. Now let's put a hat on Andre's head. At one point, Monsoon asks Heenan, what would you do if you managed the Bushwhackers? And Bobby goes, well, if I managed the Bushwhackers, I would commit suicide. He just says that as like matter of fact as can be. Holy shit. Butch starts off with a bite to the keister. They manage to fling Typhoon into Earthquake and in reverse. Big Bushwhacker march, but they're quickly cut off. Earthquake misses an elbow drop, but not the second time. In the middle of the match, Heenan just announces Hulk Hogan's in his dressing room. And you know what that means? It's put up or shut up time. I'm gonna go confront him. And he's pulling a Jesse Ventura. He just gets up and leaves in the middle of the match. Like, what the hell's going on here? Butch taking all sorts of punishment from the big fellas. Some more friendly fire by the heels gives Butch the chance to tag Luke in. Butch takes a backbreaker on the outside. Luke is smooshed in the ropes. That sets him up for the big sit and the Natural Disasters win. Then after the match, the baddies begin to surround Andre. He's swinging one crutch in the air. Suddenly, the Legion of Doom, who we'll see later tonight, they make their way to the ring and they stand up for the eighth wonder of the world. The heels powder and Andre manages to kind of whack him a couple of times with the crutch, which was funny to see them try to sell that as they were passing him by. I give it 1 star out of 5. I wasn't expecting much out of a Bushwhackers match in '91. I just question if that's the best first opponents for the Natural Disasters because they don't look that great coming through this match either. But hang on now, Bobby Heenan's backstage outside the Hulk zone. He's got the Real World's Championship belt in his hands. He knocks on Hogan's door and demands his attention. We see the door open, but we don't actually see Hogan on the other side. He starts to challenge Hogan on behalf of Ric Flair, but suddenly door slams in his face. No respect at all for the brain, I tells ya. I thought that was a weird place to plant the seeds for that, and also not a great way to depict Hulk Hogan as somebody who just like, you'd think you would hear him say something, you know, they would ADR some shit in there and have him slam the door first. Hundreds of you are calling into the hotline to hear Randy Savage and Elizabeth's thoughts on the big wedding night.
Of course I'm nervous. Wouldn't you be live in front of 20,000 people? Where am I going for the honeymoon? That's a secret. How do I know you're not gonna go and call Liz and tell her? Don't spoil the surprise, yeah!
We see Sean Mooney backstage with Ted DiBiase and sensational Sherry. It's a matchup against Virgil for the $1 million title. Let's recap some of the humiliating things you've done to Virgil over the years when he was working for you. And DiBiase's cackling at all the highlights and he goes, do you see the look on his face? That will be minute compared to how he'll be after the match. He tells Virgil to cancel those plans for Celebration. Remember the gutter I said I was going to put you back in? Well, you're in New York City. This city's full of gutters, so take your pick. Back at the Royal Rumble, the former manservant Virgil took a stand against Ted DiBiase. He beat him by countout at WrestleMania with some thanks to Roddy Piper. So now we have the return matchup here for Ted's $1 million championship. And I'm pretty sure this show marks the debut of Virgil's new theme around this time. You know, I have my opinions on Virgil as a wrestler. He is not good, but his theme was a banger. And they do bring up the history, like that Virgil worked training under Roddy Piper in the build to Mania, and like it's implied this still goes on here. Piper's like, Virgil and I spent an hour today drinking skim milk in the back. Oh, I'd hate to be Virgil right now. Virgil starts off by pantsing Ted. Now he's on fire. I gotta give it to him here. Virgil has seemingly expanded his repertoire in this match since WrestleMania, and like his selling and his footwork is like seemingly increased just tenfold in a few matches. I was impressed like how much better he came off in this than at Mania. As the match continues, you see Bobby Heenan return to the table looking pretty dejected. We almost missed Virgil taking an all-time floor bump off the springboard to the outside. That looked like it hurt. Now Ted takes over. He throws Virgil from pillar to post. Big old beating, but suddenly Virgil locks in the $1 million dream, Ted's own submission, but Sherry comes into the ring and lays out Virgil with the loaded handbag. The referee calls for the bell, and Virgil's gonna win the match by disqualification, but the belt can't change hands that way, and Piper is on the headset losing his shit over this outcome. No, damn it, we worked so hard for this. Howard Finkel says the referee has every right to disqualify the $1 million man for outside interference, but for the purpose of this storyline, he will not. He didn't actually say that, but he might as fucking well have, because like, how often does this ever happen where he's just like, okay, the match is thrown out, but then instead I'm going to eject the cheater in Sherry and then restart the match just cuz. When the fuck does that ever happen? So the match resumes. Virgil starts firing up. We get 10 turnbuckles. We get 10 corner punches. We get a referee smoosh. Good Lord, this match has got a lot of bullshit in it. Ted's talking trash to Piper on the outside. He's getting his heat on Virgil, and Piper's just screaming at him, come on, Virgil! You remember talking to your mom? You remember talking to your dad earlier today? I love you, Virgil! Fuck you, Ted! Come on, Virgil! Ted just keeps putting on the pressure, suplexes a pile driver. He presses R1 or L1 to undo the top turnbuckle pad, and he's lining up Virgil. He's gonna throw him into it. Piper is screaming like Virgil's been tied to the railroad tracks. Get out of the way, Virgil! Get up! Fight back, Virgil! And so finally, Virgil dodges at the last minute and rams DiBiase's head into it twice. We get a double down. The crowd has gone nuts over this. Virgil takes nearly 50 fucking seconds to crawl over to DiBiase, get the cover, and win the match. Virgil's the new $1 million champion. The crowd in New York is going wild for this as Virgil gets the biggest win of his career. I give it 3.5 stars out of 5. You know what? I had very low expectations going into this matchup after remembering what they did at WrestleMania. And, you know, this match did have a lot of bullshit. But man, this is a fun match. DiBiase did a really good job making Virgil look great out there. Although I will say, like, him taking nearly a minute to cover DiBiase after the turnbuckle thing is so egregious. Like, compared to like Triple H taking 30 seconds to cover Booker T after the pedigree at Mania, this is like way more flagrant. And I don't know if the way Virgil won here is a much better look than winning by countout at Mania, but it's not worse. MGO's in the parking lot with Mountie, with a couple of New York's finest and a paddy wagon in the background. Let's take you back to a couple of months ago when you zapped the Big Boss Man with the help of the Nasty Boys. And after this match tonight, one or the other is headed to the pokey. And the Mountie says after he beats Boss Man's fat mug, these little local hit cops are gonna grab you. And so then the Mountie shouts instructions at the cops, or, don't be your typical nice, polite New York cop selves. You gotta be real rough with the Boss Man here. Oh, that's an interesting characterization. Then elsewhere, Sean Mooney's in the promo zone with the Big Boss Man. I believe the Mountie has the wrong idea. He shouldn't be talking to New York City's finest on how to treat me. He should be on his hands and knees praying to God he'll make it through the morning because he's spending a long, hard night in jail. Coming up next, the Jailhouse match as Mountie takes on the Big Boss Man. There's only room for one law enforcement gimmick in this town, pal. Jacques Rougeau of the Rougeau brothers recently got repackaged as Mountie and has been zapping people with his cattle prod and the gift of post-production.
Oh, come on!
So yeah, the loser of this match spends the night in a New York City jail, and one of the Mountie's big vignettes or promos in the build-up to this matchup is him in the jail cell going through every step of the process. You're gonna get hauled out of the van, you're gonna get your picture taken, you're gonna get your prints, you're gonna get thrown in the cell. It's gonna be really sad and really scary, and you're gonna hate it. I didn't realize until the match began, these guys are actually rocking the same pair of pants, like the black with the yellow stripe down the side. This is some real Scorpion and Sub-Zero shit. Boss Man's off to a good start. The Mountie even comes off the second rope, but is caught mid-air before taking the spine buster. Jimmy Hart with a distraction, allowing the Mountie to check Boss Man into the steps. The Mountie just keeps attacking, even biting Boss Man in the face. We get a snug-looking pile driver by Mountie. Second match in a row we've seen that move. The Mountie wants to zap him, but Boss Man gets out of the way and fights back. Nice double leapfrog spot. Boss Man with the right hand, Boss Man slam, and a kick out. Good Lord, I thought this was an era when finishing moves meant something. The Mountie wants to go for another pile driver. The Boss Man blocks it, hits an Alabama slam, then he wins. Okay then. Uh-oh, here come the Popo, who cuff the Mountie and drag him out of the ring, and they keep this shot going all the way back through the curtain, down the hallway, and into the paddy wagon. Mountie is thrown in and hauled off. I give it 2.5 stars out of 5. I thought it was a fine match, but that finish had me so confused. I'm like, what the hell? Like, the Boss Man slam felt like the natural end to it, and then it was just like, okay, one more match, then we can go home. But it's not the last we're going to hear from or see from the Mountie throughout the course of this evening, and it all begins with a scintillating 12-minute promo intermission gauntlet. This is your time on the show to get up and have a smoke and go to the bathroom or something, because now we've just got promos wall to wall for a while. Beginning with Gene Okerlund back in the fake locker room, in storm DiBiase and Sherry, who are pissed at what happened earlier and that he was ripped off by Virgil. Elsewhere, Sean Mooney's with a smiling Hitman Hart, the new Intercontinental Champion, who says he proved to Mr. Perfect there is no such thing as perfection, and he just wasn't good enough. Elsewhere, Mean Gene with the Natural Disasters and a despondent Jimmy Hart, who says the Mountie got ripped off. A lot of people getting ripped off tonight. Typhoon and Earthquake are mad at the Legion of Doom. Back in the promo zone with Big Boss Man. What kind of bird can't fly? Jailbird! Gene is now somewhere else with the Macho Man, who is getting ready for the wedding and still on the phone.
Yes, I am still getting married,
So then Gene's like, I gotta go check and see how Miss Elizabeth's doing. And then Macho's like,
no way, I've locked her in her dressing room and you can't look. Now go away,
Commentary gets to kill time for a while, and then we get our first look at the Mountie in the pokey. He is dragged out of the van and he's screaming, we speak the same language! You're local cops! And I'm the Mountie! Another locker room promo. Mooney with Jimmy Hart and the tag team champions, the Nasty Boys. Jesus, it's a lot of talking. Jerry Saggs says that the LOD and Jack Tunney coagulated to make the no DQ, no count-out rules for this matchup. And this is going to be one trip to Nastyville you won't be coming back from. Although I do wonder, is Nastyville like down the road from Dudleyville, or is it closer to Wienerville? But wait, more Jailhouse fun with Mountie, who does not want his mugshot taken. We hear someone off camera yell, I guess the Boss Man kicked your butt, huh? Which of course baits Rougeau to look right up and take the mugshot. That was great. Now LOD gets to cut a promo. They say they're excited for the Nasty Boys. Oh, by the way, we stood up for Andre the Giant earlier because we were near the curtain when that happened, and we took it upon ourselves to stand up for Andre, and we are setting up our next tag team program for the rest of the year. Then we hear Gene Okerlund toss back to the jail, or as he calls it, the city sneezer, which is the funniest term I've ever heard used for that. Jesus, stop, no more promos. It's Sergeant Slaughter and the rest of the Triangle of Terror. They say Hulk Hogan and the Ultimate Warrior will be outnumbered. The Ultimate Puke looking a little snake bit as of late. And Slaughter's like, we already have the advantage. It's going to be easier than we thought. Elsewhere, MGO is with Sid Justice, who's the guest referee for tonight's main event. How are you going to call this one tonight, Sid? And Sid goes, I've answered this question hundreds of times and I'll answer it again. I stand alone. Then Gene's like, well, wait a minute, Sid. Here is some possibly incriminating footage we have of you earlier today with the Triangle of Terror. And so we see, Sheik and Adnan and Slaughter come up to Sid. You can hear Slaughter going, First Lieutenant Justice, how does that sound? And Sid looks muy conflicted. And Sid says they accosted him in the hallway. That doesn't mean anything. And all he can promise is that at the end of the night, justice will be served. Whew! All right, that's going to do it. That's the end of the promo gauntlet, everybody. Wow, 12 minutes of talking and bullshit. And the Mountie stuff was just the same joke over and over and over and over. And every piece of that had one tiny bit, but it did get really annoying after a while. And we're still not going to be done with the Mountie on this show. Otherwise, just lots of talking. Coming up next, the Nasty Boys defend the WWF Tag Team Championship against the Legion of Doom. No countouts, no disqualification, as bad and as nasty as they want to be. And personally, I'm looking forward to this match on paper. The match starts out with brawling, Animal with a powerbomb to Knobs right away. That's some good psychology. Sag appears to mace Hawk in the face repeatedly, and the announcers just totally miss it. That's totally no-sold while Animal is flailing and he's spraying, he's doing this, and they're just talking about whatever the fuck. They could not be bothered to talk about the match itself and even what's going on their monitors. Also, why is the referee trying to stop Animal from getting in the ring, and why is there all this sneaky cheating if it's no DQ? Sags with a nice top rope elbow. Knobs wants to follow up, but Hawk puts the boot up. Hawk tags an Animal who goes on a big run of offense. The Nasty Boys bring in Jimmy's motorcycle helmet. Looks like Sags is going to hit Knobs by mistake. Psych, hits Animal anyway. That was great. On the outside, Hawk decks Jimmy, and he does an all-time sell for it. He jumps in the air, and he flings the helmet into the air like Wand in Super Mario Bros. 3 style. He just flings it in the air. Hawk catches it, dinks the Nasties with it. We get the Doomsday device on Sags. The Legion of Doom wins the match, and they are the new tag team champions. I give it 2.5 stars out of 5. I kind of jinxed it. I said to myself, wow, I'm really excited about this matchup. And for a no DQ matchup, this is one of the tamest I've ever seen. It's almost like they didn't quite know how to explore those rules. Compare it to, say, the Nasties and the Steiner brothers soon after this on Halloween Havoc. And it's that's the kind of match I wanted to see with these guys here. Be that as it may, it was a solid matchup. They delivered fine enough, and it's history making for the LOD. They're the first and only tag team to win the NWA, the AWA, and the WWF tag team titles. Let's get one more Mountie update. He is still shouting and screaming to be let go. He's being hurt, finally thrown into the cell, but we're still not done. Up next, Mike Rotundo is back on pay-per-view as Erwin R. Shyster as he takes on Greg the Hammer Valentine. That's right, IRS is here in the WWF now, and he's coming after all you tax cheats. And show up in a really shitty segment dressed as Santa Claus many years from now. Don't worry, it's coming. One of the worst things about Roddy Piper on commentary during this time is that every time there's an IRS match, he's got to pronounce his first name like Erwin. Which, you know what, the first time I heard that, boy, howdy, that was real clever, real witty. But man, when you dump that on a dozen times a matchup, I just want to drive a spike through my ears. Starting out with some fundamentals. Meanwhile, we hear on commentary that, Jake the Snake Roberts and The Undertaker They're lurking around backstage somewhere. What are they up to? IRS doing the abdominal stretch with some cheating. He hits a clothesline so hard it briefly knocks out the picture. He goes up top, but it takes him too long. Hammer beals him off. He starts to set up for the figure four. He gets it locked in, but IRS grabs the ropes. Hammer keeps playing up to the crowd and attacking. He goes for the figure four one more time, but IRS rolls him up and wins. I'll give it 1.5 stars out of 5. You know, two really great accomplished grapplers in Rotundo and Valentine. It's fine, but this match was just kind of boring. It came off with like both guys, not showing their best and brightest. And I think it kind of suffered. Also, this match did not need an instant replay to show the finish.
For the match made in hell, it's going to be something else.
The wedding's next?
No, that's
the match made in hell.
Gene Okerlund's in the promo zone with the WWF champion Hulk Hogan and his good buddy, the Ultimate Warrior, talking about the match made in hell. And Hogan says the battleground of Madison Square Garden is the only place where the match made in hell could happen. And he says, ever since January 3rd, 1984, I've been looking for a high like that again. And now I got the same feeling. Wrestling history in the WWF could change again. And speaking of hell, here's somebody who's been through hell recently, more on that in a bit, in the Ultimate Warrior. And Warrior goes, "Are we loaded down, Hulkster? Are we loaded down? Take the dog to hell." He goes, one strike from a Cobra is not enough to hold back the force of Hulkamania or the power of Warrior wildness. That one doesn't quite roll off the tongue as well. We will not come by tank or by air, but walk side by side and leave 4 footsteps behind. And you will go down to the coop of Warrior wildness and Hulkamania. And Hogan chimes in and says, the bite from the Cobra, the toxins would have done a normal man in, brother. But the Ultimate Warrior, it just put more gasoline on the fire. I guess Warrior wildness is just something that infuses your blood to repel venom or make it powerful. You absorb it and now you are also the venom. Hogan says tonight is just as important as hanging on to the championship. Yeah, right. Then they say the same catchphrase together. Then it looks like Warrior's gonna grab Hogan's head and give him a kiss. Well, it's been said that 1991 was the first year the WWF really got edgy with their programming, relative to everything else they'd been doing. And boy, it's very appropriate to have this matchup here because they got to say the word hell so many times on TV. It's the match made in hell as Hulk Hogan and the Warrior take on Sergeant Slaughter, Colonel Mustafa, and General Adnan. Yes, because this storyline was so fresh and innovative and successful around WrestleMania time, they said, you know what, we gotta keep this baby going to SummerSlam. But you know what, Slaughter? He can't do it alone. We gotta give him some pals, some buddies. In comes the former Iron Sheik, who was a former rival of Slaughter's at one point, by the way. Then you have Adnan Al-Kaisi, a former longtime manager for the AWA and legit childhood friend of Saddam Hussein, coming in as General Adnan. Quick question. Why does Sergeant Slaughter lead this group when both Colonel Mustafa and General Adnan outrank him? Also, I cannot believe in the build up to this, as this is happening, completely separate from the story of the Triangle of Terror and Iron Sheik and Slaughter and all that shit, the Ultimate Warrior is going through his own arc because he's going after The Undertaker. And he has enlisted the help of Jacob the Snake Up Roberts to put him through all these tests to confront the darkness and face his fears and all this stuff. Jake locks the casket on him for a little bit. He buries him up to his neck in a cemetery. Bury me, Snake Man! And then finally, most famously on an episode of Superstars, it's a trap where Jake sends the Warrior to go into this room full of snakes. The snake bites the Warrior. He's got the toxins. He's going down. He's passing out. And that's when we find out that Jake has been working for The Undertaker this whole time. Oh my God, what a huge development that really has no bearing on this tag team match at all. They might as well have not done it. I had no idea that this was all happening before SummerSlam. I thought this was some other thing. It totally blew my mind going through this. Why are these concurrent? How is this story with Jake not impacting the other main event? And Hogan's not even damn, brother, what happened to you? It's oh, the fire and the gasoline on the fire, brother. It's you're not taking this seriously at all. And then to top it all off, we have Sid Justice coming to the WWF, the former Sid Vicious in WCW, former member of the Skyscrapers, the Four Horsemen, coming to the WWF. But this has to be one of the most confusing cases of mixed messaging I've ever seen in building someone up, because the first thing we see of Sid are these scary ass like 5-second hits of like eerie synth music, scary zoom in on Sid's big intense face. Looks pretty intimidating, yeah? But then we cut right to Sean Mooney, who's like, wow, Sid Justice is coming to the WWF. He seems like a real great guy. He's gonna make a great impact. Like, are we not gonna acknowledge that guy was doing the scary kind of thing? And then for weeks we get these like promos back to back with like faces and heels just talking about, boy, I sure am excited for Sid Justice to come to the WWF. I wonder if he's gonna be a good guy or a bad guy. And that's the whole question. The whole crux of this matchup is, whose side is Sid Justice on? He's being given the task of being a guest referee for no reason, because he's got nothing to do with any of these guys. Piper, with a very astute call just before the babyfaces come out, he says, that's why they call it hell, 'cause nobody likes it. The match begins. Slaughter's got a leather strap in his hand, and Sid takes all day for it to finally register and take it out of his hands and say no. Slaughter takes his signature bump pretty early in the match, starts getting ping-ponged. Hogan almost runs Slaughter right into a camera's lens. We also get a rare double axe handle from the second rope as the faces get their shine. So far, Sid's doing a good job calling it down the middle, daddy, chastising both heels and faces, but Sid distracts Hogan and Slaughter takes advantage. The baddies are working over Hulk. We see Colonel Mustafa putting Hogan in the camel clutch, Bubba. Call back to the world title match in the same building, which is pretty cool. I mean, Piper even makes the direct reference, I remember seeing this in 1983. Slaughter throws Hogan into Sid, and they're like, hey brother, that better not have been on purpose, dude. Sarge goes up top, Warrior gives him a shove, and he goes flying into the middle of the ring. That was hilarious. Warrior tags in, he goes after Slaughter, but he collides with Sid. Hogan plays Peacemaker, but that gives the heels another opening. Slaughter just lays on top of Warrior for a long time, and just when they begin to lose the crowd, Warrior with a big hope spot to wake them up. We get a double down, and oh my, Sid is counting so fast on this double count. Are they going heavy here? Slaughter just stands there like a dumbass, lets Warrior get the hot tag to Hogan. Warrior then grabs a chair, chasing Mustafa out of the arena and to the back. And just as Vince McMahon is in the back screaming at the Warrior and all but firing him for trying to hold him up for more money, as this is all happening off camera, meanwhile back in the ring, Hulk Hogan, the babyface mind you, throws powder into Slaughter's face, hits the leg drop, and then Sid hits a super fast 3 count, and the faces win. And Gorilla's saying, that's victory powder, brain. Yeah, I'm sure victory powder was a phrase used a lot in the back during this era in WWF. And wouldn't you know it, the champ gets to celebrate all by himself in the ring. Fuck that other guy. After a bit of posing, Hogan brings Sid back to the ring. We get this amazing shot of Sid's head just poking out of the curtain going, huh? Me? It's so funny. He gets in the ring, Hogan rips the referee's shirt, and they can all have a pose together. Wow, so that's where the hard cam is. Thanks, Hulkster. And oh my God, we've got one more Mountie update. He's in the cell screaming to be let out of there. Then one cellmate goes, you want to fight me, buddy? There's me, buddy.
Hi. Oh my God!
I love that it just took one word for the Mountie to finally hit his breaking point. Oh no, a homosexual! I'm gonna give it 1.5 stars out of 5. This is not a good match. Like, I think that Hogan and Slaughter at WrestleMania is a far better match than most people give it credit for, and I will fight that battle. However, that was a one-off, and there's no reason to keep this thing going, much less adding a couple of immobile past their prime wrestlers like the Iron Sheik and Adnan Al-Kaisi into it. I'm sorry. You know, the whole thing was just about Sid's officiating, which was pretty shit, all told, by the end of the day with this one. But yeah, that was the end of the Ultimate Warrior's time in the WWF for the time being. A month before this, Warrior demanded another $500,000 from Vince McMahon, or he wouldn't show up at SummerSlam. Vince paid him, and then, according to him in later interviews, he could not wait to fire the Warrior. Technically, he was suspended, or Warrior quit. You know, long story short, Warrior be gone for a little while, but he will come back just around the time for WrestleMania 8. Then it's almost time for the match made in heaven, the wedding of Randy Savage and Elizabeth. This starts out with a recap of the proposal on an episode of Superstars about a month ago. This, by the way, was an amazing piece of production to stitch like this obvious piece of studio post-production with like the commentators on a green screen, you know, and Randy's in the same outfit as he is live. He just gets up and walks off, and then we get that angle of the arena where Randy walks down the ramp, and then they do. I thought that was really clever.
Elizabeth, I love you. Will you marry me?
It was a weird place for Savage to be in because he's still pretty much a heel commentator leading up to this. But hey man, it's a weird time in the WWF in general. A lot is changing. And while they're setting up the wedding, we get this lovely musical tribute to Randy and Liz's relationship. Aww, and it's done to this original work by Jim Johnston, Together. And I tell you what, Lionel Richie and Diana Ross, this ain't. Because the lyrics here are just ass. It's literally, when you came into my life, then I realized you were the only one. When you came into my life, you made me realize I was the lucky one, and I've never felt like this before. Together, our love will last forever. Together, just you and me forever. Baby's first love song. But anyway, now it's time for the nuptials. Savage comes out first, a pomp and circumstance, looking as resplendent as he can be. Look at the feather in his cowboy hat, I tell ya. Piper says this comes once in a lifetime, which is hilarious because this is technically Savage and Liz's second marriage. And Piper, this is the most upset he gets in this moment here, second only to when like DiBiase's beating up Virgil earlier in the show, because he's yelling at Heenan and says, I'm happily married, I've got a great wife, I've got 6 kids. If you screw this up, I'll slap the snot out of you. Some guy is the best man. Where the hell's the genius Lanny Poffo for this? And a great line by Heenan. The ring bearer is really a midget. The organ music picks up, and that's the cue for Elizabeth to come out looking amazing in the wedding dress. And you know how this goes. The officiant does the spiel, they do the vows, Randy goes, oh yeah, and Liz goes, she will. They're doing the rings and they're doing some call and respond. And this priest is so funny because he holds the accent in so well until the very end. He can't help himself when he goes, by the power vested in me by the state of New York, you're pronounced husband and wife. Nice pop for that. Savage takes the hat off, taking it all in. They cue the balloons a little early. Oopsie, but oh, they kiss, and it's a beautiful thing. And Piper's like, ya did it, macho. I wasn't sure, but ya did it. It is the first and only time a wedding has main evented a pay-per-view, and it paid off. Again, look at the buy rates. This was an improvement from WrestleMania. The fans wanted to see love spring eternal here. And you know, it's essentially a vow renewal, since again, they were already married, and it puts a nice bow on the arc of Savage and Liz in the company, but it is bittersweet because the real couple will divorce for realsies only a year after this. But yeah, the wedding goes off without a hitch, no shenanigans, no interruptions, lovely time had by all until the reception. That's right, with no more Ultimate Warrior to feud with, and with Earthquake having moved on, teaming with Typhoon and not making Quake Burgers anymore, Jacob the Snake Up has now moved on to feuding with Randy Savage, who they have to unretire, which was a big crux of his match at WrestleMania 7, by the way. They have to unretire him to make this feud happen, which Savage apparently was upset about. He didn't want to unretire, especially not this soon. But hey, he became WWF champion by this time next year out of it, so, you know, fair trade. But what did you think about SummerSlam 91, and how about this review? Let me know in the comments section below. Be sure to give the video a thumbs up if you like it, subscribe to Wrestling with Regret, hit the bell icon to get all the notifications. Now, next time here on the Classic Review, speaking of Hulk Hogan, a few years have passed in our next edition. Hulk Hogan is now in WCW and has fully turned to the dark side and has transformed into Hollywood Hogan, leading the New World Order of Wrestling. And the next big step in the total hostile takeover is taking on the Giant for the WCW Championship at the first ever, before it was Road Wild, it was Hog Wild from 1996. But until then, I'm Brian Zane, and I'll see you next time.